Sarachas Bava Kamma daf Tzadi contains one Mishnah about a third of the way through the daf, which introduces the topic of someone who hits his friend or slaps him. Until then, the Gemara is discussing the concept of kinina perske kinina guf or not. The Gemara has brought a contradiction between two brises as to whether a woman who owns an eved and her husband has the kinyan haperis of that eved because it's her nichse malug, whether when she hits him and knocks out his tooth or his eye, does that set him free? Is she considered to be the owner or not? The Gemara wants to say it's dependent on whether the kinyan peris of the husband is called kinyan haguf or not. The Gemara wants to show that there's a machlokes tanaim if kinyan peris is kinyan haguf or not. So the Gemara quotes a brisa. There's somebody that sells an evet to someone else, but makes a condition that the seller gets to use him for the coming 30 days. He doesn't have to transfer actual possession of the evet until 30 days later. So the question is, during that 30-day period, who has the din of Yom Yemayim? Yom Yemayim is a special halacha that if somebody injures his own eved and he gets sick for a few days, but then he stands up, he heals, and he seems to be fine for 2 days, even if he'll later going to die from the original blow, the person who hit him is pater, because he had a day or two in which he was healthy in between. However, if it would not be his eved, then even if it's 30 days later, or even if it's significantly afterwards, if the death can be directly attributed to the original blow, he would be chayiv for that, and he'd actually be chayiv misa. So the Gemara wants to say, during this 30-day period, who is considered to be the owner? Who has this halacha of yemayim that if the eved who was hit has a day or two which he was healthy, you don't have to worry about any later repercussions from the original injury. So Mar quotes Rabbi Meir's opinion, who says that the first one, the seller, has the halacha of yemayim because he is the one who's using it. He's the one who has possession of it. He has the kinyan haperos. And Rabbi Meir holds kinyan haperos is kinyan haguf. He's considered to be the owner. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says no, the purchaser is the one who has it because he is the kinyan haguf. He owns the actual guf of the eved, even though the peros is still being used by the seller. He holds kinyan haperos is lavke kinyan haguf dami. There's going to be 4 opinions. Rabbi Yossi says both have the din yemayim. The Gemara explains because he's mesupik if kinyan haperos is kinyan haguf dami or not. Therefore, he's mesupik if the buyer or the seller is the rightful owner. Misafek, neither of them could have the din of being chayav misa for hitting him because safek nefasha is lahakol. Rabbi Eliezer says neither of them have the din of yemayim. They both would be chayav for hitting him. This one, the seller, because he does not own it, and the buyer because he doesn't have possession of it. Rav explains Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is based on the pasuk describing the din of Yom Yemayim, where it says ki kasbayhu, it's his money, it has to be his miyuchid money. That halacha only applies if he has full control of both kinyan hakesef and kinyan haguf. If he has only one and not the other, it doesn't count to fulfill the pasuk of kasbayhu. The Gemara quotes another halacha. The Gemara wants to know who it fits like. That is a halacha of a meimar who says that if a man and woman sell the nichse mulug, that's property that she brings into the marriage, she has kinyan haguf, and the husband owns kinyan haperos. So if they sell it, so meimar says it's a useless and valueless sale because neither of them owns it fully. Neither of them has an outright ownership. One is kinyan haperos, one is kinyan haguf. So Gemara says that's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer who says that you have to have full ownership. You can't sell it if you have only kinyan haperos or only kinyan haguf. Now the Gemara wants to quote another thing. You have a brisa. The Gemara wants to know who's the author of that brisa. So that brisa says if somebody is an eved who's owned in partnership, either between two owners or between himself and someone else, he's half a ben chayrin and half an eved. So does he go free if he loses a limb? If he's hit and he loses a limb? So this Tana says no, he does not. So who holds that way? So it says Rav Mordechai to Rav Ashi. They said in the name of Rava, this is also Rabbi Eliezer who has, you have to have the concept of kasbay, it has to be kesef hamiyuchadlai, in order to have the parsha of going out with the loss of an aver. Juskin and penis, juskin and a guf is not enough, and the same way, having a part ownership is not enough, even though it's not kinyan penis, kinyan guf, it's 50-50, but that would also not be enough, it has to be miyuchadlai, and you don't say that he goes free in part, the part that's owned, it has to be full out, clear ownership in order for this concept to apply. This concludes the Gemara. Now we get to our next Mishnah. The Mishnah speaks about various types of blows or embarrassing incidents and how much money the attacker needs to pay for them. So it's a lengthy Mishnah with a lengthy list. So the Mishnah says somebody who is tekeah his friend, that means either he hits him in his ear or he blows something loud in his ear. If For that, he has to pay one esela, which is equal to 4 zuz. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Aglili, he has to pay a money, he has to pay 100 zuz. If he slaps him, he has to pay 200 zuz. If he slaps him with the back of his hand, that's 400 zuz. Now the Gemara has a list of things that are 400 zuz. So if he pulls his ear, if he pulls his hair, if he spits at him and hits him with the spit, if he takes his talus off, or if he uncovers the head, meaning the hair of a married woman in the street, for all these things, there are 400 zuz. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, there's a rule. Everything depends on the person, the victim, and the attacker, and what their social status is. The Gemara will explain how that fits in the flow here. Rabbi Kiva says every person, even the poor person of Yisrael, is viewed as a ben chayrin, a non-eved, who has no property at all. He lost all the property, but he's be'etzem a chashav person. He just lost his money right now. We view them as being a level of chashivas because they're descendant of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Therefore, they have an innate chashivas, even though they may not have any property right now. Now, the Mishnah brings a incident that happened with somebody who uncovered a woman's hair, her head, in the street. She came before Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva obligated the attacker to give her 400 zuz. So he said, Rabbi, give me some time. Gave him some time, and he watched at the entrance to her chutzner until he saw that she stood at the entrance to her chutzner. Then he went and he broke a jug of oil in front of her, and it was the amount of oil that was in there was worth 1 iser. And she, in order to save the oil, in order to collect the oil, she took off her head covering and used it as a cloth to soak up the oil, and she covered her head with her hand. So he brought witnesses that saw this, and he brought it to Rabbi Akiva, and he said, why should I give her 400 zuz? You see, she doesn't care about the embarrassment of her head being uncovered at all. It's worth 1 iser for her. So Rabbi Akiva said, this is not a valid argument. Mishnah doesn't explain why. Now the Mishnah says somebody who injures himself, he's not permitted to do that. Similar concept to Baal Tashches. However, his partner doesn't need to pay anything. If somebody else hits him, he's chayiv. Somebody who chops down plants, trees, even though he's not allowed to do that, again, Baal Tashches, is pater. But if somebody else chops down his plants, that person is chayiv. This concludes the Mishnah. We now begin the Gemara, which discusses what type of money, what type of coin are we referring to here. It's going to get us into the sugya of Eid Nasedayin or not. Can a witness actually serve as a judge and a witness in the same case? The Gemara asks, when we said a money here, do we mean a money tsuri, a Tyrian mana, or do we mean a mana medina, a regular mana? The difference is that a mana tsuri, a sela of that mana is equal to 4 zuz. A mana medina is 1/8 the size, is equal to only half a zuz per sela, and therefore all the numbers that follow are 1/8 the size. So the Gemara quotes a Mishnah. It says it was a certain person who came in, he was a taka, his friend either hit him or blew in his ear, and they came before Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, and he said the following words. He said, here is me, and here's the basic Haglili, give him a manatsuri. So you see from here, the payment is a manatsuri, the larger sela, not the smaller ones. Now, the Gemara wants to analyze this more deeply. What did Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya mean when he said, here am I, and here's the basic Haglili? What does that expression mean? So the Gemara's first option is to say, here am I saw you. I saw what you did. Here's Rabbi Haglili. He holds that it's a mana turi. Combining the two of us together, we paskin as a beis din that you have to give him a mana because I saw you, and it's a mana turi because we hold like Rabbi Haglili. Gemara says this would imply that aid nase dayan. That Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya is functioning here as an aid. He was a witness and he saw it, and he's also a judge because he's passing in the halacha. So whereas there's a brisa that seems to say not that way. An aid cannot be the dayan. Brisa says if a Sanhedrin saw someone kill someone else, so then it's machlokes what halacha is. Rabbi Tarfon says part of them can serve as witnesses, and the rest of them, as long as you have a minimum amount, can serve as judges, and they could paskin. But two have to step out, cannot serve as judges, have to serve as witnesses. That's Rabbi Tarfon clearly holding that one person cannot fulfill the role of both the aid and the dayan. Rabbi Kiva says they can't be witnesses at all. They can't be judges at all because they're all witnesses. Even if they won't say testimony, they're all witnesses. And a witness cannot serve as a judge, even if he's not functioning as a witness. The fact that he witnessed it cannot serve as a judge. So both of them are saying an aid cannot be a judge. So how could we be saying here that aid nasa dayan? So the Gemara wants to answer that the brisa here is referring to where they saw him at night. I mean, we're going to go in the opinion of Rabbi Tarfon, and they saw him at night. If they would have seen during the daytime, Rabbi Tarfon would agree that the same members of the Sanhedrin who saw could paskin the case right there on the spot. Problem is, they saw at night, it can't be done dining nefashos at night, so they have to wait until the morning. In the morning, they have to reopen the case based on spoken testimony. Recalling what they saw before, just by memory, is not enough. Someone has to speak and testify before them. Therefore, some people have to stand and say edus, and those are the ones who will be able to speak. So can an aid nasa dayan or not? If he saw it himself, he can go straight to judge. That he says spoken testimony is an aid, and then turns around and serves as a judge, that not. Okay, says the Gemara, second shana what Rabbi Yehuda didn't see it meant. He doesn't meant to say that he holds like a Beis Glili, as I hold, and Rabbi Glili holds that it's a Mana Tzuri, and therefore the coinage is definitely a Mana Tzuri. All we need is testimony that you actually did this, and here's two other witnesses, not us. They're saying Eidus, and therefore it's not an Eid Nasa Dayan at all. The Gemara asks on Rabbi Kiva. According to what we said before, Rabbi Kiva holds that the Sanhedrin cannot serve as a dayan because they were Eidim. So the Gemara has a lengthy brisa which shows that Rabbi Kiva holds that an aid could be a dayan. The brisa discusses the following drasha. The Torah says, if somebody hits his fellow with a stone or with a fist. So we have a machlokes here between Shimon HaTimani and Rabbi Kiva. The machlokes surrounds, does the Beis have to actually examine the weapon? Do they have to examine the fist or the stone and see if it was capable of causing the damage that seems to have been caused? So Shimon HaTimani says yes. They have to examine the fist, they have to examine the stone, they have to examine whatever's there. And he learns it as follows. He says the fist comes to court because the fist is part of the guy that you're bringing to court. So just like the fist has to be present by the witnesses to examine, and the Beis Din has to be able to examine, so too the weapon also has to be brought to court to be examined as well. And if the Eidim lost it, and they don't have it, and it's not brought for the court for the Dayanim to examine, you can't be mechayev the guy because you have to be able to examine if it makes sense that the damage fits the weapon. And Rabbi Kiva disagreed. Rabbi Kiva said no. And do not have to examine the weapon. The witnesses have to have seen it and testify about it, but the court doesn't have to see it. And he says the following argument. He says, was the blow struck in front of the Beis Din, that the Beis Din could figure out, based on looking at the weapon, what kind of blow it was? I mean, even if they see the weapon, how are they going to know? They don't know how many times he hit him. They don't know which part of his body he hit him. They don't know if he hit him on the leg, or if he hit him on his heart, or if he hit him in any other significant way. Also, let's say he killed the guy by pushing him off a roof, or he hurt him by pushing him off a roof. So you can't bring the roof to Beis Din, so the Beis Din is going to have to go measure the roof and see if it's an appropriate injury. Obviously, we're not matriach the Beis Din to do that. And what would we do if the building fell down? So then we would say that the Beis Din can't be mechayev the guy because the building fell down, so the weapon's not around. None of the things are possible. So, therefore, you don't learn it that the weapon has to be examined by the Beis Din. The weapon has to be witnessed by the Eidim. The Eidim have to have seen the fist, they have to have seen the stone, they have to have seen whatever it is, and testify as to what big and how it was, and describe it to the Beis Din. Then the Beis Din will be able to give a psak based on that. Okay, that's Rabbi Akiva's shita. So the Gemara points out, Rabbi Akiva said, are the Beis Din there? Were the Beis Din there to see the blow, to know how hard it was, or where it was, or how many it was? And that implies that had they really been there, then they could rely on their own vision, on their own witnessing what happened. But you're telling me here that Rabbi Akiva holds that if they saw it, they can't be a dayan at all. So what's going on? So Gemara says no. Rabbi Akiva holds really that they can't say it. Rabbi Akiva was just saying an argument in Shimon HaTimani. Shimon HaTimani holds that they could. So Rabbi Akiva was bringing an argument against him that even according to you, the Beis Din wouldn't know how hard he hit him or where he hit him and all those things. Now, Rabbi Akiva himself holds, of course, the Beis Din can't have seen. The Beis Din would have seen, they'd be puzzled for Eidus. The Gemara now introduces another kasha based on this machlokes, Rabbi Akiva and Shimon HaTimani, about this halacha about seeing the weapons. The Gemara quotes a brisa. The brisa says, what happens if the same ox kills someone and causes a hezek? So if he's a shor tam, and he kills someone, and he causes a hezek, so we judge him for his killing, and once we've paskin that he's guilty, then he's chayev misa, he's a shor niskal. Shar HaNiskal has no value. If he has no value, there's no point in judging whether he damaged or not, because he's a shar tam. A shar tam, you only collect the payment from the body of the shar, what we call migufay, as we've seen earlier in the Masechta at length. And since he's a shar niskal, there is no value in migufay, so it's inappropriate and pointless in judging his nezikin or not. If he's a shar amud, however, then he pays him an aliyah. The owner has to pay from the rest of his property, not from the shar himself, and therefore it would depend on the order. So what we would have to do is first judge the dine mominis, the nezikin, find out how much he needs to pay it, then judge the dine nefashos, and paskin whether or not he gets skila. However, if we judge the dine nefashos first, we don't judge the dine mominis, the nezikin, afterwards. So Mar asks, why not? Why don't you judge the dine, even if you judge the dine nefashos first, and you paskin is a shar niskal, but you pay him an aliyah, so judge how much the hezek is afterwards. So Rava says, I found the Rabbanan the Beirav, and they were sitting there explaining, this is the opinion of Rav Shimon Atimani, who says that you have to have that fist, that murder weapon has to be seen by the witnesses, and has to be brought in to court. Now, if he had already been paskin that he's shar niskal, we would not hang around to have the court to judge to whether he was an appropriate weapon to cause the hezek that he caused. And we would just give him the skila right away. And therefore, we wouldn't be able to fulfill that halacha, and therefore, we wouldn't be able to judge on that nezikin that he did. He would just go straight for the skila. This was the psak that Rava reported from the Rabbanan Debei Rav. Then Rava said he argued with it. Rava said, I could even say this is Rabbi Akiva's shita. Rabbi Akiva, who holds that you don't have to examine it. So what is the problem then? Why, if you judged him dini nefashos, can you not go ahead and judge the actual hezek afterwards? And Mar says, because the owner ran away. We're talking about where the owner ran away after the judged dini nefashos, and therefore he's not around to stand trial for the hezek of his acts. So the Gemara says, then if it would be reversed, and that means that you hadn't judged him for nefashos yet, and now you want to stand the trial on the nezikin, but obviously you said you're talking about where he ran away before you got a chance to judge his nezikin, he ran away. So what case is there? Someone says no, because you already accepted the witnesses about the dine mominis, and then he ran away. Asks Gemara, I understand, if he ran away, so you can't collect anything from him. So why are we bothering to judge whether there is mominus or there's no mominus? He's gone. The guy's not here. What's the point? So my answer is no. Because we could use him now, we could use him to plow. So if you had not judged him dine nefashos yet, and now you're judging dine mominus, so the owner ran away, if you find him guilty for the mominus, you can plow him, work him, collect money to pay for that, then afterwards you'll judge the dine nefashos. If, however, you did the dine nefashos first, you can't hold on to him and keep him around to plow and to work, to earn the money, to pay off what he owes for the nezikin, because he's chayiv skila, and that has to be taken care of right away. And that's why it's not relevant to judge that if the dine nefashos were judged first. So the Gemara says, hold on a second. You're telling me chiddush, you can work the ox. The owner's not here, but you could work the ox to collect the money to pay. So even if he's a tam, so work the ox and collect the money to pay. Why do you say that there's no point because he's valueless? He's not valueless. Work him and collect the money to pay. So the answer is because work is considered to be min aliyah. So if he's a tam, you couldn't collect from the work that he does. Only because he's a muad can you work him and collect from that to pay off the chayv.